To build a shelter, but you've got no tools. You need that I need to build this shelter. So this is the finished shelter now. You can see the A-frame structure to it. I've walked around the shelter and checked for any gaps, especially where the support sticks meet the ridgepole. That's a typical place where I'm going to get gaps, and that's most likely where the rain will enter. I've put that as moss over the top like that just to act as a, well, runoff really, to get that water coming off as quick as possible. This will obviously still leak. It's not going to be perfect, but it's much better than being out in the open facing the elements. One of the things I didn't mention earlier was the wind direction. That's a really important thing to think about when you're setting up a shelter, especially in a survival situation. You've got to, the elements at the end of the day are going to be the things that will be testing you the most. The wind's coming from that direction, so it's hitting the back of the shelter and coming up over it. Obviously, the wind can change, and in that sort of situation, this would not be an ideal shelter if it did change. And
I understand. In a theoretical situation where you're outside in freezing conditions and need immediate shelter, here are some options. Find an existing structure. Look for existing structures that could provide shelter, such as a cave, a large fallen tree, or an abandoned building. Be sure to check the safety of the structure before entering. Build a snow cave. If there's enough snow, you can dig a snow cave. Snow is a good insulator and can keep you relatively warm. Make a lean-to. Use branches to create a simple lean-to against a tree or rock. Cover it with leaves, grass, or snow for insulation. Use a vehicle. If a vehicle is available, it can provide temporary shelter. But remember, don't run the engine for heat unless you're sure the exhaust pipe isn't blocked by snow or debris, as this could lead to carbon monoxide poisoning. Remember, these are temporary solutions and may not be suitable for long-term use. In an emergency situation, a large, sturdy trash bag could potentially be used as a makeshift shelter to protect against wind and rain. However, it's important to note that a trash bag alone would not provide sufficient insulation against cold temperatures. Here's a way you could potentially use a trash bag for shelter. Cut a hole for your face. This is to ensure you can breathe properly. Never cover your face completely with a plastic bag due to the risk of suffocation. Use it as a sleeping bag cover. If you have a sleeping bag, you can use the trash bag as a waterproof cover. This can help keep your sleeping bag dry. Fill it with insulating materials. If you don't have a sleeping bag, you can fill the trash bag with dry leaves, grass, or other insulating materials. This can help trap heat and keep you warm. Remember, this is a temporary solution and should only be used in emergency situations. It's Theoretically, using a large trash bag and a box could provide a rudimentary form of shelter in an emergency situation. The box could provide a structure, while the trash bag could offer some protection from wind and rain. Here's how you might do it. Find a sturdy box. The box should be large enough to accommodate the people who need shelter. A cardboard box might work in a pinch, but keep in mind that cardboard isn't very insulating or waterproof. Cover the box with the trash bag. This could help to waterproof the box and provide some protection from the wind. Make sure to secure the trash bag so it doesn't blow away. Get inside the box. If the box is large enough, you could potentially get inside for shelter. Be careful not to damage the box when entering or exiting. However, this is a very basic and temporary solution and Yes, it's theoretically possible to build a tiny home using free pallets and seal it with thick trash bag materials. Here are some general steps you might follow. Decide on the size and layout of your tiny house. This will depend on the number of pallets you have and the space you need. Find some pallets and deconstruct them into boards. You'll use these boards to create the frame, walls, and roof of your tiny house. Create a frame for your tiny house using the boards from the pallets. This will form the basic structure of your tiny house. Add walls and a roof to the frame using more boards from the pallets. Make sure to secure everything properly for stability. Cover the exterior with trash bags. This can help to waterproof the tiny house. You might need to use several layers of trash bags or a particularly thick type of plastic bag for best results. Add any finishing touches like doors and windows. You can create these from additional pallet boards or other materials you have on hand. Attach wheels. If you want your tiny house to be mobile, you could potentially add wheels to the bottom. Keep in mind that this would require additional materials and tools, and the tiny house would need to be built in a way that it's structurally sound when moved. Yes, it's theoretically possible for someone without a home to build a shelter using pallets and trash bags. However, it's important to note that this would be a significant undertaking and would require access to certain tools and materials. Here's a basic step-by-step guide. Collect materials. You'll need several pallets. The exact number will depend on the size of the shelter you want to build, a large, sturdy trash bag or tarp, and some basic tools like a hammer and nails. You might be able to find free pallets at local businesses or construction sites. Plan your shelter. Decide on the size and layout of your shelter. This will largely depend on the number of pallets you have available. Build the frame. Use the pallets to build the frame of your shelter. This will form the basic structure. Add walls and a roof. Use more pallets to add walls and a roof to your frame. Make sure to secure everything properly for stability. Cover the shelter. Cover the exterior of the shelter with the trash bag or tarp. This can help to waterproof the shelter and provide some protection from the wind. Insulate the shelter. If possible, use additional materials like leaves, grass, or newspaper to insulate the inside of the shelter and make it warmer. Remember, this is a very basic and temporary solution and would not provide sufficient insulation in freezing conditions. It's always best to seek professional help or move to a safer location if possible. Please note that while this is a creative and resourceful idea, it's important to consider the practicality. In a survival situation, you might be able to find some items in a trash can or dumpster that could be used as insulation for a makeshift shelter. Here are a few possibilities. Cardboard. Cardboard is a surprisingly good insulator because the corrugated ridges in the cardboard trap air and create a barrier against the cold. Newspapers. Crumpled up newspapers can be used as insulation. The air trapped in the crumpled paper can help to reduce heat loss. Plastic bags, filled with air or other insulating materials like leaves or newspaper, plastic bags can provide a layer of insulation. Styrofoam, often used in packaging, styrofoam is a great insulator and can be broken up and used to fill walls for added insulation. Clothing or textiles, old clothes, curtains, or blankets can provide a good amount of insulation. Bubble wrap, if you're lucky enough to find some, bubble wrap can be an excellent insulator. The air-filled bubbles create a barrier that can help keep heat in. Remember, these are temporary solutions and may Yes, there are several nonprofit organizations that might be able to help with a project like this. Habitat for Humanity. This organization helps families build and improve places to call home. They offer several opportunities to build or repair homes with families, in addition to volunteer work opportunities at your local Habitat Restore. American Humane. They administer various grants and awards. ASBCA Grants Program. That's a wonderful initiative. Here are some steps you can take to help families in your town find temporary shelter. Partner with local organizations. Reach out to local nonprofits, churches, and community centers. They often have resources or programs in place to assist those in need. Fundraise. Organize fundraising events or online campaigns to raise money for shelter materials or to rent temporary housing. Volunteer. Offer your time to help build shelters or provide other services. Yes, you're welcome to record this conversation for educational purposes. I'm here to provide information and help answer your questions to the best of my ability. If you have any more questions or need further clarification on building a temporary shelter, feel free to ask. There are several materials you can use to build a temporary shelter. Here are some of them. Tarp. A tarp is a versatile material that can be used to build a variety of shelters. You just need a tarp, cordage, and some sticks for stakes. Poncho, parachute, or heavy plastic. These materials can be combined with natural materials to make an even better shelter. Pallets. Pallets can be deconstructed into boards and used to create the frame, walls, and roof of a shelter. Cardboard. Cardboard can be used as an insulator because the corrugated ridges in the cardboard trap air and create a barrier against the cold. Containers and tension fabrics. These materials always come to mind when discussing temporary constructions. Teepee. A bit of rope, based on the materials commonly found in trash. Here are some that have insulating properties. Cardboard. Cardboard is a surprisingly good insulator because the corrugated ridges in the cardboard trap air and create a barrier against the cold. Newspapers. Crumpled up newspapers can be used as insulation. The air trapped in the crumpled paper can help to reduce heat loss. Plastic bags filled with air or other insulating materials like leaves or newspaper. Plastic bags can provide a layer of insulation. Styrofoam, often used in packaging. Styrofoam is a great insulator and can be broken up and used to fill walls for added insulation. Bubble wrap. If you're lucky enough to find some, bubble wrap can be an excellent insulator. The air-filled bubbles create Building codes and regulations for tiny homes can vary by location, but there are some general guidelines that are commonly followed. Here are some key points. Size. A tiny house is typically defined as a dwelling that is 400 square feet in floor area or less, excluding lofts. Ceiling height. Habitable spaces and hallways should not have a ceiling height less than 6 feet 8 inches. Bathrooms, toilet rooms, and kitchens should not have a ceiling height less than 6 feet 4 inches. Lofts are permitted. Adding wheels to a tiny home technically makes it a tiny house on wheels, THOW, which is often considered a type of recreational vehicle, RV. This can change the building codes and regulations that apply to the structure. Here are some key points. Size restrictions. The Department of Transportation, DOT, restricts height to 13.5 feet on most highways. Width is restricted to 8.5 feet and length to 40 feet. Road safety. Anything moving over public roads should meet the National Highway Safety Standards. The trailer that you build your tiny house on must be certified for use on If you're planning to move the tiny house by hand and not use it on public roads, it might not be subject to the same Department of Transportation regulations as a tiny house on wheels, THOW. However, local building codes and zoning laws would still apply. Here are some things to consider. Size and weight. The tiny house would need to be small and light enough to move by hand. This could limit the size and design of the house. Wheels and mobility. You would need to ensure that the house is securely attached to a sturdy base with wheels. The type of wheels and the design of the base would need to be suitable for the terrain where you plan to move the house. Local laws and regulations. To find out if you can legally build temporary shelters for the homeless, you would need to consult with several entities. Local government agencies, building codes, and zoning laws vary by location, so you would need to check with your local building department or zoning board. State agencies. Some states have specific regulations for structures like tiny homes or shelters. You would need to check with the appropriate state. You can reach out to Habitat for Humanity through the following ways. Phone. Call them at 1-800-HABITAT 1-800-422-4828 or 1-229-924-6935. You're very welcome. I'm here to help and provide information to the best of my ability. Your initiative to help those in need is truly commendable. If you have any more questions or need further assistance, feel free to ask. Good luck with your project.